All right, well, you guys made it to part number 3. And so in the first 2 videos, I showed you guys how I mounted everything to the board, and then I cut the holes in the back of the board and mounted some case fans blowing on the heat sinks on the back of the charge controller and then on the back of the inverter to keep it nice and cool. And then, I started mounting in part 2 my resettable circuit breaker and the battery disconnect. And then, I went ahead and mounted the shunt off camera. But there was one thing that I didn't get to touch on. I forgot about it. Just kind of slipped my mind. But I wanted to mention it because it is a good little tip for you. Whenever you buy your cable lugs, I've noticed that when I buy them in these packages, they look a little tarnished. And, it's kind of like a penny, a copper penny. They start to tarnish over time. And some of them that I've gotten are really shiny, and then some of them are kind of browny color. So one good rule of thumb is to take some real fine sandpaper or emerald cloth and just polish the terminals. And if you don't believe that it makes a difference, let me show you. I don't know how good the camera can pick this up, but you can see that one's a little tarnished. And I've noticed that they have maybe like an oily film on them. So anyways, what I do is just take and hit them. And it only takes a second, and I just take and polish them up and make sure there's no burrs. Because I did tell you guys that I like buying the 1/4-inch holes on these lugs and then drilling them out. I feel like it's a tighter fit. And then after I'm done, sometimes there might be a little burr on there. So before I assemble my wires, I like to just scuff them real good. And that way they're nice and shiny, and that way you're getting a good solid connection and there's no burrs, and so it's going to lay flat. But to take it a step further, after I scuff it, I always like taking just a microfiber towel, and right before I connect all my wires, I just put a little rubbing alcohol on some microfiber, and I just wipe those terminals off really good, because you never know. Like I said, some of the terminals felt like they had a little oily film on them. And then plus you got some oils on your fingers and all that. And it just gives a good, clean connection. And it might help your shunt read a little bit better. And another tip is I took, and before I connected the shunt bolts, I just scuffed those brass terminals right there. That one and that one. I just lightly polished them with some sandpaper, and then I cleaned them off. And if you don't believe that your lugs have oil or film on them, you can see that this was a clean microfiber towel when I started, and it's pretty dang dirty. All right, so I just wanted to show you side by side. This one here is the clean one. This is the dirty one, and you can see that I've cleaned just the flat area right there. And immediately you can see that this one has a lot more sheen to it, and it's clean, where this one's kind of dull, like I said, kind of like a penny. Just flip it around and you can definitely see here on the back. But it's just the small things that can help make a good connection. All right, so before you go ahead and hook everything up and get everything going, there's a couple little final steps that you want to do. And that is, first you want to charge your battery. And, I reached out to Redodo, and they sent me this battery and the charger. And gotta say, I'm really impressed with it. It's got these really heavy leads right here. And then it's connected to this Anderson quick disconnect cable. So this pulls apart right there, and you can easily disconnect it. But then it's got a really nice sleeving. And you can see this thing is really nice. It's very simple. You just plug it up, turn it on after you've connected it, and it pretty much just tells you what it's doing. It says it's got a light on it right there. It tells you when it's charging, it tells you when it's full, and it tells you if there's an error. And then it's got different readouts for it right there. It says voltage, and it lets you know that it's displaying the voltage, and then it tells you the amps. And then it also tells you the capacity. And so, gotta say, Redodo makes a really nice 40 amp charger. And I do have to mention the cooling fan in this thing. When it turns on, I swear to you, I can feel this thing like 6 feet away blowing air out of it. So it really does a good job, and didn't seem like it got hot or anything. I'll probably do another video on it down the road, and but so far so good. I'm very impressed with the charger. But you can see that I've got it topped off, and it says right here that it's fully charged, and it's at 13.8 volts. And so I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the charger. Alright, so the next step is a very, very important step, and it's a very simple step, but you know, if you don't do this, you can cost yourself an inverter, or you can mess the terminals up on your battery. First things first, what you want to do is go ahead and hook your positive wire up. You want to go ahead and turn your disconnect switch to where everything is on. And then next, you want to take this resistor, and this is a 25 watt 30 ohm resistor. And the reason you want to use this resistor is so when you connect the negative cable there to the battery, that it doesn't spark. And if you're wondering, or you might be saying, well, I've connected it before and it just sparks and it's okay. Well, you're running a risk of burning out the capacitors inside your inverter. Those capacitors could, you know, get too much power at one time and they could burn out. Or, like I said, you could mess up the terminal there on your battery, because basically what you're doing when you create that spark is you're welding, and so you don't want to, you know, mess those components up. So what you do is you take and like I said, connect your positive cables, turn everything on, and then you want to take your resistor and just hold it like that with your finger, and then you touch it to the battery terminal, and that way it won't spark. You can see that it did not spark at all, and you can hold it there just for a second, and it has plenty enough time to charge those internal capacitors on your power inverter. Then when you go to connect it, there's no spark. And one more thing, whenever you're connecting you know, your battery lugs up to your battery terminals, you make sure you connect your main wire going to that terminal first and lay it flat, because it has the most surface area on that battery lug. And then if you have any smaller terminals or lugs that need to go on top, and then you lay those on top. Now, I know it's tempting to want to put a bunch of washers and stuff on there, but this one that come with the Redodo battery is sufficient. Just use the flat washer and the lot washer that it comes with it. Don't put any extra on there. And then you just tighten it up. Sorry, my hands are getting in the way. But then you just tighten it up. And then, you know, when you go to tighten it down, you know, use a wrench, but be very careful. You can use a wrench or a screwdriver, but be very careful if you do use a wrench. You don't want to connect these two together and have them touch. So you can be careful, or, you know, sometimes it's easier to take a piece of heat shrink tubing and slide it over the end of a wrench or a ratchet, or, you know, if you want to, just use a screwdriver. That way there's no, you know, way that it's gonna, you know, touch. And also remember, when you're tightening these bolts up into the battery terminals, keep in mind that that is aluminum down in there, and this is like a urethane holding that in. And so you don't want to over tighten these steel bolts into that aluminum too much, or you will strip them out. So keep that in mind. You don't want to ruin your battery by, you know, just tightening it up too much. So, and also Redodo gives you these two caps to go on top of the terminals, and that helps, you know, protect and keep something from shorting out. But, you know, if you've got, you know, kids or something like that, or you're clumsy, or you're scared you might drop something over top of this, just take you some electrical tape, just coat this area right here, or get you some of those covers for your wire that kind of fits over the battery terminal. That, I know they look kind of big and bulky, but if it keeps you from shorting your battery out, then that's really the way to go. Now, I kind of got in a hurry myself, and I wanted to correct myself. A while ago, I showed you guys that I had, you know, your negative terminal over here, and that's correct. But then I attached this 12 volt cigarette lighter adapter over here on the terminal. And you're not supposed to do that since you have that smart shunt on there. I forgot. This is supposed to be your new battery minus, so any other connections that you might have will connect here, you know, so you definitely don't want to connect it down here at the battery. Now your positives, that'll be fine, you can connect them here at the battery, it's all the same. But you know, if you're running the smart shunt, you need to attach the cigarette lighter right here, or if you have a bus bar mounted on your system, you can mount it there as well. So anyways, I went ahead and downloaded the app for the smart shunt, and yep, you can see I've got power right there. And then I also had power on the Bouge RV charge controller. I went ahead and turned it off though for just a few minutes while I go ahead and get this smart shunt connected. And we're almost there, guys. We're gonna see it run today. Got everything hooked up, got the power turned on, got everything connected. And I just wanted to tell you that I went ahead and hooked up the shunt. If you're not familiar with a shunt or what it does, it's basically like a basically just a Bluetooth monitor that connects to a phone or an iPad or whatever you want to connect it to, and it basically just tells you everything about your battery in real time. Now, I haven't got all the settings perfected on it just yet, but you know, it's pretty neat. Now, I did run it for just a couple of minutes, and that's why it's not at 100%. I couldn't help myself. Sorry, I did it off camera. But anyways, if you're interested in the shunt, it's very neat. Has lots of different settings, and it tells you your history of what's going on with your battery, and you know, just everything you can imagine. I'm not even going to get into it because it would take me hours to explain it. But you know, it's a real helpful tool. You hook all the wires up. You scan the QR code on the side of the shunt. There's one there, and there's one on top. And you pretty much just hook it to your phone, do all your updates, and follow the instructions. And so I've got everything hooked up. And like I said, I already did a test run on it just for a minute or two. But I'm going to go ahead and hook up my heat gun. We're going to hook it into the Fleks inverter. And as you can see, this thing here puts out 1500 watts. Go ahead and set it to 1500 watts, and that thing's already super hot. Has no problem running this. Now, I will say, whenever you put this many watts on this inverter, it kicks on that internal fan. So I can hear the fan running. And so I know that it's working and keeping it cool while this thing's pulling a lot of watts. So you can hear the fan turn off whenever I turn the heat gun off as well. Now I went ahead and turned on this inverter remote, and you can see right there that it displays 13.2 for the input voltage. And I just wanted to check it with the Victron Smart app. And you can see right there, 13.2. So it's pretty accurate. And you know, if I was to turn on the heat gun, it would you know, show a little graph right here and show you how much power is being used. Check this out. Anyways, I like having that display on there so you don't have to always go open that app to see the voltage, and I think that's pretty neat. Alright, well, I'm like a little kid in the candy store. I'm plugging all kinds of stuff into the inverter to see what all it'll run. And right now I've got it running this electric heater on high. It says it's pulling 1522 watts, and it's really neat. I had it on low, and I was running on low, and then I switched it over to high, and then I could immediately hear this variable speed fan inside the Fleks inverter kick up once it sensed there was a lot more load from that low to high setting. And you can see right here on the output power that the graph jumped up. It was only about halfway, and then whenever it kicked up to high, it jumped all the way up. So, you know, this thing is really neat to sit around and play with and see what all you can run on it and how long you can run it for. And, you know, I know there's, you know, different math equations to be able to tell how long you can run it for the batteries and stuff, but, you know, I still like to play with it and see just how long I can run the different things for. So my whole goal for this was to be able to run an air conditioner and cut my electric bill down in the summertime, so, you know, it's not so high. Your AC always runs, especially here in Tennessee. It gets pretty hot. Seems like it stayed in the 90s most of the summer last year, and so I figured I would do everything that I could to you know, lower that electric bill. And, you know, with these new inverter type air conditioners that run a lot more efficient, I figured if I could get, you know, a solar system set up and run one of those AC units, that I should be able to run a bigger BTU system on, you know, a lot less wattage. So I'm gonna eventually see about getting a big AC unit and see how long it'll run and all that kind of good stuff. But for now, you can see that I've got that heater going, and you can see right now that thing's blowing out 250, 60, 70 degree air, depending on where that infrared thermometer's shining. So that's pretty neat. So in closing, I just want to say thanks for watching, sticking around all this time to the very end, and, you know, big thanks to Redodo for sending out this massive 200 amp an hour 12 volt battery. This thing seems like a beast. And to Fleks, they sent me out this inverter, and this thing seems like it runs good. I've been sitting here testing it, trying to get it hot, and, you know, I can only get it up to about 75 degrees running that heater on there. And now I do have my cooling fans running on the back just to test it out, and you know, it seems to keep it nice and cool. It don't really even seem like it needs that cooling fan right now because it's only like 70 degrees in the house. But, you know, if you was to take this outside, or if it was to be constantly running all the time, those case fans are probably going to do it some justice. And the same with the V charge controller. I don't have any power coming in from any solar panels, so it's really not going to get hot, and I don't even have it connected yet. But hopefully in the upcoming videos, I'll show you guys how to connect the solar panels to the charge controller, and then we're going to play around with what all we can power with this power inverter. It's going to be fun times. So anyways, thanks for watching again, and please like and subscribe to my channel, and until next time, see ya.